We're opening up the medical case file on some highly unusual events that allegedly took place at the old civil hospital. We're going to break this incident down step by step to really understand what on earth the medical staff encountered that night.
So, the big question right off the bat, what exactly happens in the ICU of Ward No. 9 between 2 and 3 a.m.? According to the source accounts we're looking at, right as that clock ticks toward 2 a.m., the entire atmosphere of the hospital just shifts. It's dramatic. The casual, everyday smiles of the night shift staff, they completely fade away, replaced by this heavy, absolute silence.
And well, that silence falls for a very specific reason. Locals actually call it the devil's hour or shaitan call. The hospital legend basically dictates that any patient admitted to the third-floor ICU between 2 and 3 a.m., they just don't survive the night. Now sure, senior doctors are quick to dismiss this, right? They call it a statistical coincidence. But the night shift staff, the ones actually on the ground, they tell a completely different story. They report that during this specific window of time, the very air in the room actually physically changes. To really get a grip on the psychology of what went down, we have to talk about the environment itself. Picture this. The civil hospital is sitting totally isolated on a hill right on the outskirts of the city. And on this particular night, there is massive torrential rain. The source describes it as falling so hard it was like it was trying to violently wash the sky clean. Inside, you've got that classic oppressive hospital smell, right? Phenol, dampness, strong medicines just hanging in the air around these old, peeling walls, all under flickering red emergency lights. So this is the incredibly grueling setting where 27-year-old Dr. Arav Mehta and his 25-year-old intern, Neha, are already grinding through a massive 18-hour night shift. Let's look at the timeline, because things escalate so fast. 2 a.m. hits, the so-called devil's hour officially begins. Fast forward to 2:17 a.m., the source notes that everything is dead quiet in the ICU, except for the slow beeping of the monitors. But then, just moments later, that quiet is entirely shattered. There's this horrific metallic grinding coming from the old hospital elevator. We're talking metal violently scraping against metal, almost as if it's dragging something impossibly heavy up from the floors below. And right at that exact moment, boom, total power failure. The whole floor is just plunged into darkness. Then, out of that darkness, these slow, dragging footsteps start echoing down the corridor. It turns out to be the hospital's cleaning lady, wearing a light blue sari. She just stops near the door and says, "Doctor, be ready. A case is coming." Honestly, what's so fascinating here is her absolute cold certainty. There is zero panic in her voice. No rush at all. It's just this calm, unwavering premonition tossed into the dark hallway, like she already knew exactly what was going to happen. And literally right after her warning, a frantic grandmother and her desperate son just burst into the ward, and they're carrying a 4-day-old infant. The source describes this moment as being filled with this palpable sense of terror. They were moving like time was literally slipping through their fingers, just screaming at the top of their lungs for the doctors to save this tiny baby. Now, crucially, the family is interpreting this whole emergency through a purely supernatural lens. The grandmother is screaming, "There is an evil shadow on him. Today is Amavasya. A demon has taken him." For context, Amavasya is the night of the new moon, which in folklore is super heavily associated with dark, unexplainable occurrences. So we have this stark, super fascinating contrast here. You've got the grandmother's tears, her panic, these supernatural claims, and it's all violently clashing against the cold, clinical, scientific reality of an ICU.
But let's take a step back for a second and look at the actual data through strictly medical lens. If you compare a normal newborn to this patient, the contradictions are honestly terrifying. I mean, think about it. A normal newborn is warm, they're breathing, they're crying, they have pink skin and soft muscles, right? But this patient, freezing cold, absolutely no breath or chest movement whatsoever, dead silent. The skin is this dark blue-black color, like every ounce of oxygen has just been drained out of it, and the muscles are unnaturally rigid, literally as stiff as wood. This biological presentation makes zero sense. It completely contradicts normal human physiology. So as Dr. Arav takes the baby, and he's already noticing his own heart skipping a beat here, the cleaning lady is just casually mopping the floor in the corridor, and then she whispers this incredibly chilling line. She says, "A similar baby came last month, passed away right at 2 before morning." The source really emphasizes that she says this without even a single ounce of fear. It's just this emotionless, bizarre observation, almost like she's watched this exact same tragic loop play out 100 times before. And hearing that, it sends intern Neha over the edge. Her hands just start violently trembling while she's trying to check the baby's pulse. Okay, so now the pace in the room just shifts into absolute overdrive. They immediately initiate the emergency NICU protocol. It's go, go, go. Rush the patient in. Attach the vitals monitor. Apply the oxygen mask. Crank up the flow. Initiate chest compressions. Dr. Arav is barking out orders, fighting down his own rising panic, rushing to get the infant onto the stretcher. But right as he sets the baby down to start the compressions, the source notes this deeply, deeply unsettling sensory detail. Out of nowhere, Dr. Arav feels an inexplicable, freezing breath right directly on his shoulder. Despite that, they manage to get the vitals monitor attached. The screen flickers to life with those green lines, and it locks onto a number, 63%. Now, if you know anything about medicine, 63% oxygen saturation is terrifying. Dr. Arav instantly orders the oxygen flow to be increased. They've got the mask secured, the flow is cranked all the way to maximum capacity. But the number on the monitor? It just refuses to budge. 63, 63, 63. It's practically flatlining on that number, almost as if the machine itself has just totally given up trying to read a living patient. And the crazy thing is, this medical anomaly is really just the beginning. The whole situation rapidly escalates into a full-blown environmental nightmare. I mean, the anomalies are just piling up. You've got the numbers stuck endlessly at 63. The AC in the room is completely dead because of the power failure, but the air inside is freezing. It literally feels like ice. Outside, you've got violent lightning that's physically shaking the glass windows. And honestly, perhaps the most disturbing part of all this, intern Neha looks up and the cleaning lady is just standing there on the other side of the glass, unblinking, staring straight at the infant, just waiting to see how it all ends. So, faced with a situation that is completely defying all medical logic, Dr. Arav makes a critical call. He needs to know what is actually happening inside this infant's body. I mean, the chest compressions aren't doing a thing, the maximized oxygen isn't working at all, the baby's body is still completely rigid. So, with his hands visibly trembling, he gets a syringe ready to draw a blood sample. And this right here brings us to the absolute horrifying climax of the source material. We all know normal human blood is a pretty familiar red liquid, right? Well, as Dr. Arav pulls back that plunger, the fluid that fills the syringe is black, like a deep, deep black. The source describes it as abnormally thick, almost the consistency of chocolate syrup. Instantly, all the color just drains from the doctor's faces. Intern Neha is so terrified she literally drops the test tube. It shatters everywhere on the floor. But here is the kicker. The black liquid doesn't spread out like a normal fluid would. It stays grouped together. It clumps and thickens, almost like motor oil, sticking to the floor as if it were, a living entity. So, what does this all mean? We are left with this ultimate mind-bending question drawn straight from the account. Was this just some highly bizarre, incredibly rare, completely undocumented medical anomaly? Or was that frantic grandmother actually right? Was it the shadow of Amavasya and the terrifying lore of Ward No. 9? I'm going to leave that for you to ponder. This case file is such a wild reminder that sometimes the line between hard medical science and the supernatural is literally just a flickering red light in the dark. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and hey, always keep questioning what you think you know.